If traditional laptop designs bore you, then perhaps take a closer look at Acer's Iconia 6120. Hey guys, here at OSandVTechTrees.com. You're watching our video review of this pretty interesting convertible dual touchscreen laptop, and it has two 14-inch touchscreen displays, and the second one is actually on the keyboard, and so it brings up a virtual keyboard. The reasons why you might want to check this out is if you want multitasking, so you can open up two applications at once on two screens, or if you want to have a larger expanded view of web browsing, viewing back images and video content and the such. Otherwise, again, it's a pretty mid-end in terms of specs, but pretty high-end in terms of price. It's a high-concept design that's going to retail for about $1,200, which is pretty expensive, but it has the Intel Core i5 chipset clocked at 2.6 gigahertz, a 460 gigabyte hard drive, 4 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM, and those are all pretty good specs in terms of performance. So it's going to handle most video files, handle web browsing, and basic applications and basic games just fine. So it's going to be pretty good in terms of performance. Otherwise, the device is quite heavy because it uses Corning's Gorilla Glass to protect the displays and also has a aluminum front and finish, which weighs about 6 pounds. So it's extremely heavy to take around with you compared to an ultra portable. Another downside to this product is it doesn't have a optical drive. So if you want a built-in CD or DVD drive for playing back movies and installing programs, it's actually not going to work. You do need an external one to plug it in and add into the little bit of bulk to the product. Otherwise, it has a 4-cell battery, which lasts about 5 hours, which is respectable for a two-screen design. And again, the sense of the design is definitely evokes a sense of something that's very premium with the metallic finish. So it definitely feels like something that's worth a lot of money, and it's really well crafted and well made by Acer, which we do appreciate. The left-hand side of the product has access to a on-screen keyboard key, and pressing on this will automatically bring up the virtual keyboard. There's a charging port, there's also a full HDMI port, and also two USB 2.0 ports. The right-hand side of the unit has access to a USB 3.0 port for high-speed data transfer, also a 3.5mm headphone jack and a microphone port. We also have access to a VGA out port for the video, and also an Ethernet port. There's also a power on and off switch on the hinge of the unit. The front also has a soft touch material on the side, which makes it very easy to open up the lid and close it up, which is a nice design from Acer. The back of the product is also pretty interesting because it's made out of metal, but it's very easy to remove by kind of prying open these sides of the feet, and it reveals access to the RAM, the hard drive, and the CPU. It can also be very easily accessed and kind of modified, so if you are someone that's handy with PCs, the nice thing about the Acer Iconia 6120 is that when fully turned on, you can see how both of the displays will be utilized as such, and the bottom of the panel usually takes on the orientation of a virtual keyboard, which is pretty spacious and easy to type on. It uses a chiclet-style island layout, which offers pretty nice buttons and keys, and again, the product does have multi-touch enabled, so you can type pretty rapidly without the device kind of slowing down, which we do appreciate as far as performance is considered. It takes a little bit of acclimation to get used to typing on this thing at first, but it's just like typing on your iPad or on your Android device. I think that you can get a pretty respectable speed after using it for a while. You're going to have a little bit more errors than on a traditional tactile keyboard, but it's not anything too bad in my opinion. The bottom device features the trackpad, which in my opinion is a little bit small because, again, this entire thing is a touchscreen interface, but again, if you put your palms on the palm rest here, it's not going to actually press anything, but the trackpad is the only touch-sensitive part which uses the mouse or the cursor on the top of the device. It's a little bit small, again, for our taste, considering that the device can be expanded on in terms of the size, but it's still pretty comfortable to use and very responsive. And the side of the touchpad also dubs as a scroll bar. So when you're in different applications like the web browser, you can scroll up and down through pages. And also it dubs as a click on the sides here, so you can actually drag and drop, which works pretty well, pretty responsive overall. As far as the processor and the performance aspect, with the Core i5 chipset on board, it's pretty responsive, pretty lucid in terms of browsing the web and using basic applications. We found that multitasking wasn't, too much of a hindrance. Web browsing, watching videos, basic data management, and word processing were all handled pretty well by the processor. Of course, if you are going to be playing more extensive games that require more GPU performance, the product isn't a gaming laptop, so it's going to obviously slow down and offer not as good performance in that department, but it still works pretty well. Again, the device is pretty bright and vibrant in terms of the display, and the viewing angles are pretty decent as well, but they are huge fingerprint magnets, so they will be difficult to see under direct sunlight. Taking a look at kind of the web browsing experience in general, it ships with the native Internet Explorer web browser, and you can see that pages load pretty well, and it's nice and easy to drag and drop. If you don't want to use the trackpad on the bottom, you can also press the screen, and that works pretty well as well. We can also close down the virtual keypad when we don't really want to use it by pressing the X over there, and then we have an extended view where we can now drag and drop the current kind of bar here in our application by dragging it down to the bottom here for a dual screen view. Something to note here is on every single application in the Iconia 6120, there is an interesting tab on the side here, which allows you to open up a manager for you to swap between two different screens. So this is on the top here, these two buttons that you can actually press on, and they correlate to the switching back and forth between the screens. And again, you can see that we now have this interesting icon that appears on screen for you to close the application, expand it, and there's also a few numbers over here. So if you press on 1 and 2, it automatically transitions it so that we have the page open in both screens instead of only one screen, or vice versa, we can press it to be only 2, so that's only going to show up on the bottom screen and not on the top. And now we can open up another application on the top for multitasking. So again, we have 2 applications open instead of only 1, which is again pretty interesting. So otherwise, again, performance is pretty good. If we are using both screens and you want to bring up the keyboard, all you have to do is put up your 10 fingers and put it onto the screen like you're playing a piano, and then the keyboard will pop up on screen. When you're typing, there's also a audible clicking noise that's from the manufacturer, so it creates the illusion that you are typing on a real keyboard, which is also pretty nice. There's also handwriting recognition by pressing out the top over here, so you can use it to jot down little notes, and you can write with your fingers if you don't want to use the keyboard itself. But unfortunately, there isn't a Wacom digitizer pen included with this particular tablet, so it's not going to be as responsive, also not going to be as good for graphic artists out there. So otherwise, some other applications that take advantage of the dual screen system would be something called the Acer Touch Wheel. This now uses 5 fingers, so you can put 5 fingers on the screen. It brings up this carousel view of different applications that correlate to some specific touch enhanced functionalities that use both screens, including the touch video, touch music, touch photos, a touch browser, a social jogger. You also have something called the scrapbook, and also a journal. Essentially, the difference between the touch browser and a built-in browser like Internet Explorer or Chrome is that it allows you to scrapbook different pages, which is something that's kind of interesting. But otherwise, performance is a little bit slower than on a traditional browser, so it's not going to be, I think, as preferred, in my opinion at least, but it still works pretty well. If we tap on that again, you can see that it takes a little bit longer to load, but after it loads, you do have a native dual screen view, so you don't have to adjust anything, but then you can again go back and forth, and if you want to scrapbook perhaps an image or something, I can now press on the scrapbook icon on the bottom right hand corner, and then allows me to draw and annotate perhaps this particular photo. I can click on it, and then I can now tap on it to put it into my journal or copy it. So let's put it into my journal, and now if I put in my 5 fingers again and go into the aforementioned My Journal, it will now have the built-in tab here that I just copied over, so you can see that this is now appearing on the top left-hand corner there. So it's pretty intuitive, and it's a nice way to kind of bookmark different pages. You can also annotate these pages and draw different icons and gestures there, and all the while you have another application open on the top, so it takes up 2 screens for 2 different applications, which is pretty nice. Another feature of the drawing of the carousel view here is the gesture pad in the center. So you can assign different programs to different gestures. So if I want to draw different letters like G, this isn't programmed to anything right now, but I can program for perhaps to the Paint application. So whenever I draw on the G, it's automatically going to open the Paint application up, which is kind of nice. Otherwise, again, another application that's noteworthy is the social jogger, which is unique on this product. It allows you to open up some feeds very similar to Motorola's MotoBlur service, where you can now have access to your email, to your YouTube feed, to your Twitter or Facebook feeds, and it pulls together all your different social media ideas into one center, which is kind of interesting, and it really reminds us of an Android or a Windows mobile interface rather than something that's like a Windows 7 Home Premium as the OS, but it's nice and it's easy to use and something that's pretty intuitive overall, which we are excited about. Otherwise, again, that's pretty much it as far as the touch functionalities are considered, or the special touch functionalities. You will notice here that as far as performance is considered, it takes a little bit longer after you have a lot more applications open, so It definitely slows down a little bit more as you open up more and more app programs as you expect, but performance overall is generally favorable, and playing back YouTube videos is still done pretty well and without a hiccup. So if you wanted to go to YouTube as an example, again, we can search on that. Now this is just Internet Explorer and not actually Chrome, so it's going to take a little bit longer to load, but it still should work. You can see that YouTube will load up as such, and I can now browse up and down using the scroll bar on the side. First, let's click on the page, and now it still should, again, scroll up and down. And overall, it works pretty well as far as, again, web browsing is considered and watching back YouTube videos. I will say this, though, as far as watching back any video is considered, it's only going to use one screen instead of two screens. So you can watch a video as you perhaps type an essay on the bottom there, or you can perhaps, open up a file manager as you're watching a video, but you can't use both screens for watching the video, which is okay, I guess, considering there's a huge gap in the center here. So if you're going to be opening up both screens, it's not going to be that comfortable anyways. But again, it's something to take note of. Performance, again, it's pretty well. It's pretty good as far as speeds are considered. The Wi-Fi card installed on here is actually a pretty decent one. So if you are worried about the reception or wireless reception, it does work pretty well, and the chipset does a pretty good job of handling complex websites and browsing the web using Flash-enabled sites like New York Times. You can see it loads up pretty quickly, and you can multitask by pinching in and out of different pages, and it works pretty well as well. Overall, I would say that the Acer Iconia 6120 is certainly a very fascinating and intriguing laptop. It offers an experience unlike really anything we've seen before, and it definitely is a better kind of multitasking experience than any laptop that we've currently seen, especially if you're someone needing a larger display because you find that only one screen is too small or too limited. I would say that the Acer Iconia 6120 is a good candidate to go. Or if you're looking for a conversation starter, again, this is a great laptop to kind of invest in or take a closer look in at least. It has great build quality, pretty good performance. Downsides to this product is the price tag, the fact that it doesn't have an optical drive, and also the fact that it's quite heavy to lug around. But if you can kind of oversee those issues, I would say that it's definitely something that's worth the closer look in. Now, if you are a graphic artist looking to get a touchscreen laptop, I would say that some other options out there might be better, just because that they have a Wacom digitizer pen, which allows you to draw and annotate with pressure sensitivity, whereas on this particular PC, there isn't a pressure sensitivity for the touch. But otherwise, for the general consumer, perhaps for some early adopters, it will work as advertised. Still, I think that the product doesn't do the best job of answering the question of, why I would always need two touchscreen displays outside of multitasking, because if you don't plan on using multitasking every time, I would still stick with a traditional laptop because it's going to be a lot more cost friendly, and the keyboard is going to be a little bit better than a touch keyboard. But if you, again, do need that kind of interesting design, do need that dual touchscreen display for that multitasking, then this is, again, something to consider. So thanks for watching this video review here at osandvtxreviews.com. This has been the Acer Iconia 6120. You can read our full review and more details about this interesting laptop on our website at osvtxreviews.com, and also our brother site at OS Tech News.